There's a peculiar paradox in our modern world. In an era where we're more connected than ever before, where a simple tap on a screen can bring us face to face with someone on the other side of the planet, why do so many of us feel an inexplicable... Why do we rush to fill every moment of silence with noise, every instance of solitude with company, as if being alone were some terrible affliction to be avoided at all costs? Listen closely, because what I'm about to share with you today might challenge everything you've been conditioned to believe about solitude and loneliness. These two words, solitude and loneliness, have become so intertwined in our collective consciousness that we've forgotten they represent two entirely different experiences of being human. You see, we live in a world that has somehow convinced us that being alone is something to fear, something to avoid, something that signals failure or inadequacy. From a young age, we're bombarded with messages that tell us happiness lies in constant connection, in never-ending social interaction, in being perpetually surrounded by others. We've created a society that celebrates the extrovert ideal so thoroughly that we've begun to view solitude as a problem to be solved rather than a gift to be cherished. But here's the truth that nobody talks about. The ability to be alone, truly alone, with yourself is one of the greatest strengths you can develop. It's not a weakness to be overcome. It's a power to be harnessed. Think about the pressure we put on ourselves and others, the constant need to be in a relationship, to be part of a group, to be invited to every social gathering. We've created this invisible scoreboard where our worth is measured by the number of friends we have on social media, the size of our social circle, or how many weekend plans we can boast about. And what's the result? We've become afraid of our own company. We've forgotten how to sit with ourselves, how to listen to our own thoughts, how to find comfort in our own presence. The moment we find ourselves alone, we reach for our phones, turn on the television, or seek out any form of distraction to avoid facing that solitude. But discomfort you feel when you're alone isn't evidence that something's wrong with you. It's evidence that you've been conditioned to doubt your own sufficiency. You've been taught to believe that your own company isn't enough, that somehow you need external validation and constant companionship to be complete. This misconception runs so deep that we've created a whole vocabulary around it. We speak of ending up alone as if it were some terrible fate. We use phrases like all by yourself with tons of pity. We've turned solitude into something to be pitied rather than celebrated. Ready to share something profound with you? Every great insight, every moment of genuine self-discovery, every instance of true growth happens in solitude. It's in those quiet moments when you're truly alone that you can hear your own voice most clearly. The voice that gets drowned out by the noise of constant social interaction, by the opinions of others, by the endless chatter of the world. The irony is that our fear of being alone often leads us to the very loneliness we're trying to avoid. When we can't be comfortable in our own company, we become dependent on others for our happiness. We enter relationships from a place of need rather than choice. We maintain friendships that we've lost touch with our own inner resources. We've forgotten that we are complete in ourselves, that we don't need constant company to validate our existence. This isn't just about being comfortable spending an evening alone or taking yourself out to dinner. This is about developing a fundamental understanding that your worth, your completeness, your happiness, none of these things depend on the presence of others. They come from within, from that deep well of self-knowledge and self-acceptance that can only be accessed in solitude. The pressure to be constantly connected, constantly social, constantly out there is exhausting. It's unsustainable. And more importantly, it's unnecessary. You don't need to apologize for wanting time alone. You don't need to justify your need for solitude. You don't need to feel guilty about declining invitations or choosing to spend time by yourself. What we need to understand is that the capacity to be alone is not just a nice-to-have skill. It's essential for psychological well-being. It's in solitude that we process our experiences, that we make sense of our lives, that we reconnect with our true selves. It's in solitude that we develop the inner strength that allows us to form genuine connections with others, not from a place of need, but from a place of wholeness. The myth of loneliness has convinced us that being alone means being incomplete. But the truth is exactly the opposite. It's only when we learn to be complete in our solitude that we can form genuine connections with others. It's only when we're comfortable being alone that we can choose relationships rather than cling to them out of. Think about the most significant moments in your life, the times of real growth and transformation. Weren't many of these moments experienced in solitude? The quiet early morning when you finally gained clarity about a difficult decision. The peaceful evening when you reconnected with your own dreams and aspirations. The solitary walk when you found the strength to make a necessary change in your life. These moments of solitude aren't empty spaces to be filled. They're fertile ground where your true self can flourish. They're not evidence of social failure. They're opportunities for profound personal growth. They're not something to be avoided. They're something to be embraced, celebrated, and cherished. As we continue this journey together, I want you to start questioning the stories you've been told about being alone. Question the assumption that solitude equals loneliness. Question the belief that your worth is measured by your social calendar. Question the idea that being alone means something is missing from your life. The ability to be alone peacefully, productively, joyfully, this is not just a skill. It's a superpower. It's the foundation upon which all genuine connections are built. It's the source from which all true creativity flows. It's the wellspring of self-knowledge and self-acceptance. In the coming moments, we're going to explore how to develop this superpower, how to transform our relationship with solitude from one of fear to one of appreciation. We'll discover how being alone can become not just bearable, but beautiful. Not your behavior in the presence of others. You're free from the need to perform, to please, to conform. In this freedom, you discover parts of yourself that have been waiting patiently to be acknowledged. Think of solitude as the soil in which self-discovery takes root. Just as a seed needs darkness and silence to germinate, your deepest insights need the nurturing environment of solitude to emerge. It's in these quiet moments that you begin to understand not just who you are, but who you could be. But here's what makes solitude truly powerful. It's not just about self-discovery, it's about self-creation. In those moments when you're truly alone, you have the space to consciously shape your thoughts, beliefs, and values. You're not just finding yourself, you're actively participating in creating who you want to be. The power of solitude extends far beyond simple self-reflection. It's a catalyst for creativity, a breeding ground for innovation, and a sanctuary for mental clarity. When you're alone, your mind is free to wander down unexplored paths, to make unexpected connections, to see possibilities that remain hidden in the noise of social interaction. Consider how solitude allows you to develop your own thoughts, rather than merely reacting to the thoughts. In a world where we're constantly bombarded with opinions, advertisements, and social media feeds telling us what to think, feel, and desire, solitude offers a precious opportunity to distinguish your own authentic thoughts from those you've absorbed from your environment. This is where true personal growth occurs. In solitude, you can examine your beliefs without defensive reactions. You can question your assumptions without feeling threatened. You can explore new ideas without the immediate need to defend or justify them to others. This kind of deep, honest self-examination is nearly impossible in the constant presence of others. But the power of solitude goes even deeper. It's in these quiet moments that you develop emotional resilience. When you learn to sit comfortably with yourself, when you no longer need external validation to feel worthy, you build an inner strength that no external circumstance can shake. The strength doesn't come from building walls or becoming independent to the point of isolation. Rather, it comes from developing such a strong relationship with yourself that you no longer fear being alone. When you reach this point, something extraordinary happens. Your relationships with others transform. Instead of seeking relationships to fill a void or escape loneliness, you begin to choose relationships that enhance your already complete life. You become capable of genuine intimacy because you're no longer desperate for connection. You can give freely because you're no longer trying to get something you lack. The power of solitude also lies in its ability to help you develop clarity about your life's direction. When you're constantly in the company of others, it's easy to be influenced by their dreams, their priorities, their definition of success. But in solitude, you can hear your own aspirations clearly. You can distinguish between what you truly want and what you've been conditioned to want. This clarity extends to decision-making. In solitude, you can weigh options without the immediate influence of others' opinions. You can listen to your intuition without second-guessing it. You can consider choices based on your own values rather than social pressure or others' expectations. There's also a profound freedom in solitude. The freedom to explore your interests without judgment, to pursue your passions without explanation, to follow your curiosity wherever it leads. This freedom is essential for personal growth and self-action. It's in these moments of unstructured, unobserved time that you often discover what true. But perhaps the most powerful aspect of solitude is its ability to teach you self-sufficiency, not in a practical sense, but in an emotional and spiritual sense. When you develop the ability to be alone without feeling lonely, you achieve a kind of independence that's rare in our interconnected world. This self-sufficiency doesn't mean you don't need or want relationships. Instead, it means you enter into relationships from a place of wholeness rather than need. You can maintain healthy boundaries because you're not afraid of being alone. You can say no when you need to, because solitude is not a punishment, but a choice. The power of solitude also manifests in your ability to process emotions more effectively. When you're alone, you can feel your feelings without the need to explain them, justify them, or manage others' reactions to them. This direct relationship with your emotional life leads to greater emotional intelligence and self-awareness. In solitude, you can practice self-compassion without feeling self-indulgent. You can acknowledge your mistakes without shame. You can celebrate your achievements without fear of appearing boastful. This honest, unfiltered relationship with yourself becomes the foundation for as we move forward to explore how to find genuine fulfillment in your own company. Because once you grasp the power of solitude, you'll never again mistake being alone for being lonely. You'll recognize it for what it truly is, an opportunity for growth, a source of strength, and a path to authentic self-discovery. Now that we understand the immense power of solitude, let's explore something equally profound, deep, lasting fulfillment in your own company. This isn't about simply tolerating being alone. It's about discovering the joy, the peace, and the profound satisfaction that comes from developing a rich inner life. The journey to finding fulfillment in your own company begins with a fundamental shift in perspective. Instead of viewing time alone as empty space that needs to be filled, start seeing it as sacred time for self-discovery and growth. This is time that belongs entirely to you, free from external demands and expectations. The first step in this journey is developing genuine self-awareness. This goes beyond simply knowing your likes and dislikes. It's about understanding the patterns of your thoughts, the nature of your emotions, and the deeper currents of your inner life. It's about becoming a curious observer of your own experience. When you're alone, start paying attention to the quality of your thoughts. Notice how your mind works. What patterns do you see? What stories do you tell yourself? What dreams and aspirations emerge when there's no one else around to influence them? This kind of self-observation isn't about judgment. It's about understanding. As you develop this self-awareness, you'll begin to notice something remarkable. There's an infinite richness to your inner world. Just as the night sky reveals more stars the longer you look, your inner landscape reveals more depth and complexity the more attention you give it. This discovery alone can be a source of endless fascination and fulfillment. But self-awareness is just the beginning. The next step is developing self-acceptance. This doesn't mean becoming complacent or refusing to grow. Rather, it means acknowledging who you are in this moment while remaining open to who you might become. It means treating yourself with the same kindness and understanding you would offer a dear friend. This self-acceptance creates the foundation for genuine inner peace. When you truly accept yourself, you no longer need constant external validation. The approval or disapproval of others loses its power over your sense of worth. You begin to find a steady center within yourself that remains stable regardless of external circumstances. One of the most powerful practices for finding fulfillment in your own company is mindfulness. This isn't about complex meditation techniques or spiritual practices, though these can be valuable. It's simply about being fully present in your own experience, moment by moment. When you're alone, Practice being fully present with whatever you're doing. Whether you're preparing a meal, taking a walk, or simply sitting quietly, give your full attention to the experience. Notice the sensations, the thoughts, the emotions. Every moment becomes an opportunity for discovery and growth. Learn to cultivate what we might call active solitude. This means engaging in activities that nourish your soul when you're alone. It might be writing in a journal, practicing an instrument, working on a craft project, or simply sitting in contemplation. The specific activity matters less than the quality of attention you bring to it. As you develop this practice of active solitude, you'll discover that time alone becomes something you look forward to rather than something you endure. It becomes a time of renewal, creativity, and deep satisfaction. You begin to protect and prioritize this time because you understand its value. Another aspect of finding fulfillment in your own company is developing emotional self-sufficiency. This means learning to regulate your emotions, comfort yourself when you're upset, and celebrate your achievements without needing external validation. It means becoming your own best friend and confidant. This emotional self-sufficiency doesn't mean you never need others. Rather, it means you can be emotionally complete in yourself while still enjoying and appreciating connections with others. It means you can experience the full range of human emotions without becoming dependent on others to manage them for you. As you develop these inner resources, you'll find that solitude becomes a source of energy rather than a drain. Time alone becomes rejuvenating rather than depleting. You'll discover that you can draw strength and satisfaction from your own company in ways that complement and enhance your relationships with others. Learn to appreciate the small pleasures of solitude, the freedom to follow your own rhythms, to change your mind without explaining why, to spend time exactly as you choose. These simple freedoms can be a source of profound satisfaction when you learn to appreciate them fully. Develop rituals that make time alone special. Perhaps it's a morning routine of quiet reflection, an evening practice of reviewing your day, or regular periods of creative expression. These rituals create structure and meaning in your solitude, making it something to look forward to rather than something to avoid. Remember that finding fulfillment in your own company is a skill that develops over time. Don't expect to become completely comfortable with solitude overnight. Start with small periods of time alone and gradually extend them as you become more comfortable. Be patient with yourself as you develop this new relationship with solitude. As you continue this journey, you'll discover that the ability to find fulfillment in your own company becomes one of your greatest strengths. It becomes a reliable source of peace, creativity, and renewal that you can access whenever you need it. It becomes a foundation for genuine self-confidence and authentic relationships with others. As we've explored the power and beauty of solitude, it's essential to address another crucial aspect of this journey: understanding the distinction between healthy solitude and problematic isolation. Because while solitude can be profoundly nurturing, there are times when being alone can shift from beneficial to harmful. The key is learning to recognize the difference between choosing solitude and hiding from connection. Healthy solitude enriches your life, while isolation diminishes it. Healthy solitude energizes you, while isolation drains you. Healthy solitude deepens your capacity for connection, while isolation erodes it. Let's talk about the warning signs that indicate your relationship with solitude might be becoming problematic. The first sign often appears in your emotional landscape. When healthy solitude turns into isolation, you might notice a persistent feeling of emptiness rather than fullness. Instead of feeling renewed by time alone, you feel depleted. Instead of feeling peaceful, you feel anxious or restless. Pay attention to your thoughts during times of solitude. In healthy solitude, your thoughts tend to be exploratory, creative, and constructive. But when isolation sets in, thoughts often become repetitive, negative, and self-critical. You might find yourself ruminating on past hurts or worrying excessively about the future rather than being present in the moment. Another warning sign appears in your relationship with social connection. Healthy solitude enhances your appreciation for meaningful relationships. When you do connect with others, the interaction feels genuine and enriching. But in isolation, you might notice yourself becoming increasingly reluctant to engage with others. Small social interactions might start to feel overwhelming or exhausting. Watch for changes in your daily patterns. Are you declining invitations not because you genuinely prefer solitude at that moment? Just as we need to develop our capacity for solitude, we also need to nurture our connections with others. These connections provide a different kind of nourishment that complements the benefits of solitude. Think of your social connections as a garden that needs regular tending. This doesn't mean you need to be constantly socializing, but it does mean maintaining meaningful connections, even while honoring your need for solitude. A few deep, authentic relationships can provide more nourishment than numerous superficial ones. Learn to recognize the different types of connection you need. Some relationships energize you, while others might drain you. Some people understand and respect your need for solitude, while others might take it personally. Part of maintaining healthy social connections is being selective about where you invest your social energy. It's also important to understand that seeking support is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of wisdom. If you find yourself struggling with isolation, reaching out to trusted friends, family members, or mental health professionals shows strength, not failure. It demonstrates self-awareness and a commitment to your well-being. Remember that human beings are fundamentally social creatures. While we can thrive in solitude, we also need meaningful connection with others. The key is finding the right balance for you, recognizing that this balance might shift during different periods of your life. Develop strategies for maintaining social connections, even during periods when you need more solitude. This might mean scheduling regular check-ins with close friends, participating in group activities that align with your interests, or finding ways to contribute to your community that feel authentic to you. Learn to communicate your needs clearly to others. Help them understand that your need for solitude isn't a rejection of them, but rather a vital part of your self-care. Most people will respect your boundaries when they understand the reasoning behind them. Pay attention to the quality of your social interactions. Are they genuine and meaningful, or superficial and draining? Are you present and engaged when you're with others, or are you mentally distant? The goal is not just to have social connections, but to have ones that truly enrich your life. Consider creating rituals or routines that help you maintain both solitude and connection. Perhaps you have certain days dedicated to social activities and others reserved for solitude. Maybe you have morning hours for solitary reflection and evening hours for connect. Find a rhythm that works for you. Remember that balance doesn't mean equal time spent alone and with others. For some people, the ideal ratio might be 80 solitude and 20 social connection. For others, it might be the reverse. The key is finding your own optimal balance and being willing to adjust it as your needs change. When you do notice yourself slipping into isolation, take small steps to rebuild connection. Start with low-pressure social situations. Perhaps begin with text messages or brief phone calls before moving to in-person meetings. Be patient with yourself as you reestablish comfort with social interaction. Understand it truly is. We've overlooked its power to heal, to transform, to illuminate our path forward. This shift in perspective isn't just about changing how we think about solitude. It's about changing how we think about ourselves. When we embrace solitude, we're making a powerful statement. We are complete in ourselves. We are worthy of our own time and attention. We are enough exactly as we are. Think about how this shift changes everything. Suddenly, a quiet evening alone becomes not a failure to make plans, but an opportunity for self-discovery. A solitary walk becomes not a substitute for company, but a chance to connect with your own thoughts and feelings. Time spent alone becomes not empty space, but fertile ground for growth. This new perspective reveals something remarkable. The quality of your solitude directly influences the quality of your connections with others. When you're comfortable in your own company, you bring a different energy to your relationships. You come from a place of wholeness rather than need, of choice rather than dependence. The transformation we're talking about goes beyond just accepting solitude. It's about celebrating it. It's about recognizing those moments of solitude as opportunities for profound personal growth, for deep inner work, for genuine self-discovery. It's about understanding that every moment spent in meaningful solitude is an investment in your own development. This shift in perspective also changes how we view our relationship with ourselves. Instead of seeing yourself as someone who needs to be entertained or distracted, you begin to see yourself as someone worth knowing deeply. You become curious about your own thoughts, interested in your own perspectives, engage with your own inner world. When we embrace this new perspective, we begin to understand that the capacity for solitude is actually a form of emotional maturity. It's a sign of inner strength, not weakness. It demonstrates self-sufficiency it shows wisdom rather than withdrawal. This transformation in how we view solitude can have ripple effects throughout our entire lives. It can change how we make decisions, how we spend our time, how we relate to others, and most importantly, how we relate to ourselves. It can free us from the constant need for external validation and allow us to live more authentic lives. The beauty of this perspective shift is that it's available to everyone. It doesn't require special skills or circumstances. It doesn't demand dramatic life changes or complex practices. It simply requires a willingness to see solitude differently and to begin exploring its potential in your own life. As we embrace this new perspective, we begin to understand that solitude isn't just about being alone. It's about being alive to our own experience. It's about being present to the richness of our inner world. It's about being available to the deeper currents of wisdom and insight that often go unnoticed in the rush of daily life. This shift in perspective also changes how we view our own company. Instead of seeing time alone as something to get through, we begin to see it as something to savor. We start to appreciate our own thoughts, enjoy our own presence, value our own company. We become not just comfortable with ourselves, but genuinely interested in our own inner landscape. The transformation we're talking about is both subtle and profound. It's subtle because it doesn't require dramatic external changes. You don't need to retreat to a mountaintop or withdraw from society, but it's profound because it fundamentally changes your relationship with yourself and, by extension, with everything else in your life. This new perspective reveals that solitude is not just an absence of noise, of company, of activity. It's a presence, a rich, full, vibrant presence that can nourish and sustain us. It's not empty space to be filled, but fertile ground where our truest self can flourish. As we conclude this journey together, remember that this shift in perspective is not a destination, but a continuing journey. Each day brings new opportunities to deepen your relationship with solitude, to explore its potential, to discover its gifts. Each moment alone becomes an invitation to know yourself more fully, to grow more completely, to live more authentically. The choice is yours now. You can continue to view solitude as something to be avoided, or you can embrace it as the powerful force for transformation that it truly is. You can see time alone as empty space to be filled, or you can recognize it as precious time for growth and self-discovery. You can fear solitude, or you can welcome it as a trusted friend on your journey of personal development. Remember, the goal is not to inform your choices, guide your path, and enrich your life. Because when you truly understand that being alone is not the same as being lonely, you unlock a power that can transform every aspect of your existence. You discover that within your own company lies an infinite source of wisdom, creativity, and peace, waiting only for you to recognize and embrace it. The journey begins now in this moment with a simple choice to see solitude differently. The power is yours. The time is now. The opportunity is endless. Embrace it fully and watch as it transforms your world.